Well, it's almost impossible to predict what the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee is going to decide on Selection Sunday, but nevertheless, we're here to talk about some men's basketball predictions, see if they can get an at-large bid, and go over some of the details surrounding this year's bubble. I'm Tommy Lopez here with Rams Review, joined by two of the Commonwealth Times guys, editor Adam Stern and assistant sports editor Quinn Castile. So, guys, we take a look, at RPI, strength of schedule, for this year's Rams team, and we'll also talk about where they stood last year. But right now, the Rams are in the conversation for an at-large bid for the tourney.
Yeah, they're in the conversation. If they have enough, quality wins, South Florida, Akron, obviously UNI last week, to at least be in the conversation. I don't know if you saw the New York Times column a couple days ago. There's a quote from Jerry Palm. He says, VCU is probably on the outside of the bubble given the fact that the CAA is a little down this year as far as the number of quality wins throughout the conference.
Yeah, I mean, the RPIs aren't as good this year, and neither is the strength of schedule for all the top CAA teams. But what hopefully you may see with VCU is that they're just seen as that sexy mid-major team, and that's kind of something that hopefully they can bank on after having a very big run last year where the committee just kind of gives them a little bit more leeway just because they're seen as a team that's a matchup problem and very attractive.
And it's interesting to see if the selection committee will look at the run last year and kind of factor that in into maybe giving us a bid this year. And we'll go ahead and put on the screen for you. We'll look at the RPI and strength of schedule this year. As you can see right now, VCU floating around 70th in RPI. Strength of schedule, though, plus 200 so far. And if you look at where they were last year they were 4th in the CAA compared to being 2nd this year. But strength of schedule, better. It was better than 100th in the country. You look at their RPI, was a little better too. Obviously, they finished after the CAA tournament, their RPI was even better. It was more around 50. So it has been just a down year for the CAA. So not even looking at the non-conference games, just the CAA has kind of hurt VCU this season.
You could say that, but at the same time, VCU had plenty of opportunities to get the quality wins that would have put them in a little more of a safe position. If they had gotten a win against one of those top 30 RPI teams, like a Seton Hall or even, a Georgia Tech, early in the season. Whereas last year they had the win over UCLA, which sort of put them over the edge. This year, I don't know if I see that one game, that perhaps an out-of-conference game that would put them over the edge.
Yeah, and I feel that they did this on purpose to an extent. They lost 4 seniors, and Shaka Smart and his staff, they helped craft this schedule. And I don't think it's a mistake that necessarily they went a little bit weaker this year, much younger team, and they wanted to maybe kind of alter the strategy, which is get more wins and just hope that other factors will go in their favor. Because if they had played a lot of harder games, who knows, maybe they wouldn't have gotten as many wins, and if they had gotten more losses, they wouldn't even be in the conversation.
And the win total is more impressive than last year, already at 24 wins at this point in the season. But you do have to look at the fact that beating Old Dominion on the road last year, beating Mason in the CAA tournament, those were quality wins themselves. Those two teams are both in the top 30 in RPI, and we just don't have that this year from conference games. Also, the game at Alabama, VCU played tough in that game. If they win that game, where are they in the conversation now? But we can also look at the bubble itself. And we talked about last year how people were calling it a soft bubble, right, as far as the teams that were in contention to get those at-large bids. Where do we see the landscape right now?
Right now, I think VCU, it kind of all hinges on the CAA tournament, as you just mentioned. They can certainly get on the inside of that, perhaps that soft bubble, as you said, if they can at least reach the conference championship, maybe get a win against another top 3 team, maybe get a 3rd win against ODU, maybe we're talking about a 2nd win against George Mason. Maybe we're talking if they can come in and beat Drexel, who has the best RPI in the conference. That's, I'd say the CAA tournament is the key to, where the season goes from here.
Yeah, and I do think VCU's chances are not as good this year. I mean, I think VCU has a solid chance, but there's no doubt that last year they did have a couple more impressive wins. So, they are definitely on the outside looking in right now, but I do think that there's a number of factors that could potentially see them in. As Quinn mentioned, getting to the CAA tournament final is essential. If they were to play a great game and lose to perhaps Drexel or George Mason, we could see them get an at-large bid maybe. But if they were to fail in doing that, then, they basically the moral of the story is they have to have momentum going into Selection Sunday.
And remember, the easiest way to make the NCAA tournament, win your conference tournament. And we will find out the CAA tournament, the CAA tournament starting March 3rd. The Rams will play Saturday after getting a first-round bye. Don't know who they're going to play yet. It does hinge largely on if the Rams can beat George Mason on Saturday. For Adam Stern and Quinn Castile, I'm Tommy Lopez.